Karen called Judge Judy's court a joke. 3 seconds later, Judge Judy delivered the most brutal takedown in television history, exposing lies so shocking that Karen's own lawyer tried to distance himself from her. But what Judge Judy revealed wasn't just about this case. It was about a pattern of deception so elaborate, so carefully constructed, that it had fooled everyone for months. Everyone except Judge Judy. Before we dive into this incredible case, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing where my viewers are around the world. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss more unbelievable cases like this one. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. The studio courtroom felt different that day, charged with an electricity that even the camera crew could sense. The familiar wooden podium stood between two worlds. On one side, Karen Mitchell, a woman whose confidence bordered on arrogance, her designer purse clutched like a weapon, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against the plaintiff's table. She had walked into that courtroom believing she was untouchable, armed with what she thought was an airtight story. On the other side sat Judge Judy Scheindlin, 78 years old but with the razor-sharp instincts of a prosecutor who had seen every lie, every scheme, every desperate attempt to manipulate the system. Karen had no idea that Judge Judy had spent the previous evening doing something that would change everything. Something that Karen's own arrogance had made possible. The audience, packed into the small studio, could feel the tension crackling like static electricity. They had come expecting the usual small claims drama, but what they were about to witness would become the most shared, most analyzed, most devastating 3 seconds in courtroom television history. Judge Judy sat behind her bench, her reading glasses perched on her nose, a single manila folder resting before her. To Karen it looked like standard paperwork. She had no way of knowing that inside that folder was evidence so damning, so perfectly timed, that it would not only destroy her case, but expose a web of lies that reached far beyond this courtroom. The stage was set for a moment that would prove why Judge Judy had never lost her edge. Why after decades of cutting through deception, she could still deliver justice with surgical precision. Before we see how Judge Judy dismantled Karen's entire world in just 3 seconds, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell. Trust me, you'll want to see every second of what happens next, and you definitely don't want to miss moments like this when they drop. This wasn't just another petty dispute over a broken lease or a fender bender. What Karen had done struck at the very heart of everything Judge Judy had spent her career defending. The case on paper seemed simple enough. Karen Mitchell versus her former business partner Sandra Chen, over $47,000 in missing inventory from their boutique clothing store. But beneath the surface lay something far more sinister, a carefully orchestrated fraud that had been months in the making, and if Karen walked away victorious, it would send a chilling message to every con artist watching. Karen had built her entire strategy on one fundamental assumption, that she was smarter than everyone else in that room. She had crafted her story with the precision of a novelist, complete with fabricated receipts, doctored emails, and even fake witness statements. Her plan was brilliant in its audacity. She would paint Sandra as the thief, herself as the victim, and walk away not just with the $47,000, but with her reputation intact and her business partner destroyed. What made it even more despicable was that Sandra Chen was a single mother of 2, working 16-hour days to keep their business afloat while Karen lived off the profits. But Karen had made one critical miscalculation. She had underestimated the woman sitting across from her. Judge Judy hadn't built her reputation on accepting stories at face value. For over 25 years in family court, and another 25 on television, she had developed an almost supernatural ability to detect deception. She could spot a lie from the moment someone opened their mouth, read guilt in a nervous gesture, and uncover truth in the spaces between words. Karen, blinded by her own arrogance, had walked into the courtroom of the one person who could see through her performance. The stakes couldn't have been higher. If Karen succeeded, it would mean that elaborate fraud could triumph over truth, that careful preparation could overcome justice, that the loudest voice in the room could drown out the facts. Sandra Chen sat in the defendant's chair, her hands trembling slightly as she watched Karen present her case with theatrical confidence. Sandra knew the truth, but she also knew how convincing Karen could be. After all, Karen had convinced their other business partners, their suppliers, even Sandra's own family, that she was the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who could be trusted with the money. Judge Judy had seen this pattern before, but never executed with such calculated precision. Karen wasn't just lying about this case. She was a professional manipulator who had turned deception into an art form. Her social media was filled with photos of luxury vacations funded by money she had stolen. Her closet was stuffed with designer clothes purchased with cash that should have gone to pay their employees. Her entire lifestyle was built on a foundation of lies so elaborate that even she sometimes seemed to believe them. The audience in the courtroom could sense something was different about this case. They had watched hundreds of episodes, seen Judge Judy dismantle liars with ruthless efficiency, but this felt bigger. Karen's confidence was unsettling, her story almost too perfect, her evidence just a little too convenient. She spoke with the authority of someone who had never been challenged, never been caught, never been held accountable for her actions. What the audience didn't know, what Karen couldn't have known, was that Judge Judy had received a phone call 3 days before the taping. A call from someone who had been watching Karen's pattern of behavior for months, someone who had documentation that would turn this entire case upside down. Judge Judy had spent years perfecting her ability to research cases, to dig deeper than the surface accusations, to find the truth that others missed. But this time, the truth had found her. Sandra Chen represented every honest person who had ever been victimized by someone more cunning, more ruthless, more willing to lie without conscience. She was the small business owner who played by the rules while others cheated. She was the hard worker who trusted the wrong person. She was the single mother who put everything on the line for a dream, only to have it stolen by someone she considered a friend. If Karen won, it would be a victory for every con artist, every manipulator, every person who believed that intelligence meant the ability to deceive others. Karen's arrogance was breathtaking in its scope. She didn't just expect to win, she expected to be celebrated for her performance. She had practiced her story so many times that she delivered it with the confidence of someone reciting absolute truth. Her fake documents were masterfully created, her false timeline was seamlessly constructed, and her victim act was Oscar-worthy. She had even gone so far as to plant false evidence in Sandra's personal belongings. Evidence that she planned to reveal at just the right moment for maximum dramatic impact. But Judge Judy had built her career on one simple principle. The truth always surfaces, no matter how deeply it's buried. She had learned to look beyond the obvious, to question the convenient, to doubt the too perfect explanation. Karen's case was too clean, her evidence too convenient, her story too rehearsed. Every instinct Judge Judy had developed over 5 decades in the legal system was screaming that something was wrong. The courtroom felt like a powder keg waiting for a spark. Karen sat with the posture of someone who had already won, her designer clothes and expensive jewelry a stark contrast to Sandra's simple dress and nervous demeanor. The imbalance was intentional, part of Karen's strategy to appear successful and trustworthy, while making Sandra look desperate and unreliable. Every detail had been calculated, every aspect of her appearance designed to support her narrative. What was about to unfold would become a masterclass in justice, a moment that would be studied by law students and celebrated by anyone who had ever been victimized by a skilled liar. Judge Judy was about to prove that no matter how elaborate the deception, no matter how confident the deceiver, truth has a way of cutting through lies like a sword through silk. The stage was set for a confrontation that would expose not just Karen's lies about this case, but reveal a pattern of behavior so shocking that it would change everything everyone thought they knew about the woman sitting in the plaintiff's chair. Karen rose from her chair with the confidence of someone who had never been challenged, never been caught, never faced real consequences for her actions. Her opening statement wasn't just a presentation of facts. It was a performance crafted to destroy Sandra Chen's credibility and reputation in the most public way possible. She smoothed her designer blazer, adjusted her statement of claim with theatrical precision, and began weaving a web of lies so intricate that even Sandra, sitting just feet away, found herself questioning her own memories. "Your Honor," Karen began, her voice dripping with false sincerity. "I trusted Sandra with everything. My money, my business, my future, and she repaid that trust by stealing $47,000 right from under my nose." She gestured dramatically toward Sandra, who sat frozen in her chair, overwhelmed by the sheer audacity of the accusations. Karen's performance was flawless, her tone perfectly calibrated to convey hurt, betrayal, and righteous indignation. She had clearly rehearsed every word, every pause, every emotional inflection. Judge Judy sat motionless behind her bench, her expression unreadable, but her eyes never leaving Karen's face. To the casual observer, she appeared to be listening intently to the testimony. In reality, she was cataloging every micro-expression, every telling gesture, every subtle sign that separated truth from elaborate fiction. Karen, intoxicated by her own performance, missed every warning sign that she was being studied like a specimen under a microscope. Karen pulled out a folder thick with documents, spreading them across the plaintiff's table like a dealer laying out cards. "I have receipts, Your Honor, email chains, bank statements. Everything proves that Sandra was systematically stealing from our business account." Each piece of evidence was presented with flourish, as if she were revealing treasure rather than fabricated lies. The paperwork looked impressive, official, absolutely convincing to anyone who didn't know what Judge Judy knew. She thought I wouldn't notice, Karen continued, her voice rising with practiced outrage. She thought I was too trusting, too naive to catch her stealing from me. But I documented everything, Your Honor. Every transaction, every suspicious withdrawal, every lie she told me about where the money was going. The audience murmured softly, some nodding in sympathy for what appeared to be a legitimate victim of theft. Karen fed off their reaction, her confidence growing with each supportive glance from the gallery. Sandra tried to speak, to defend herself against the avalanche of accusations, but Karen immediately cut her off. Your Honor, if I may continue. Sandra has had months to prepare her excuses, but the evidence speaks for itself. It was a calculated move, designed to make Sandra appear desperate and guilty while positioning Karen as the patient, long-suffering victim who deserved justice. Karen's coup de grace came when she turned to address Judge Judy directly, her voice taking on a tone of disappointed authority. Your Honor, I've watched your show for years. I've seen you deal with liars and thieves. I thought this court would be the place where I could finally get justice. She paused for effect, letting her words sink in before delivering what she believed would be her winning blow. But if this court can't see through Sandra's obvious lies, if this court can't recognize clear evidence when it's presented, then maybe this court is just a joke after all. The words hung in the air like a challenge, and the courtroom fell into stunned silence. No one, in all the years of Judge Judy's television career, had ever been so brazenly disrespectful. Karen had just called Judge Judy's court, her reputation, her decades of service, a joke. The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats, sensing they had just witnessed something unprecedented and potentially explosive. Judge Judy's expression didn't change. She didn't react with anger or indignation. Instead, she simply reached for the manila folder that had been sitting before her since the beginning of the case. Karen, still basking in what she believed was her moment of triumph, completely missed the significance of that simple gesture. She had no way of knowing that Judge Judy's calm response wasn't patience. It was preparation. The folder she was opening contained something that would turn Karen's carefully constructed world upside down in a matter of seconds. Karen sat back in her chair, satisfied that she had taken control of the courtroom, convinced that her performance had been flawless. She had no idea that she had just sealed her own fate with the most arrogant mistake of her life. Judge Judy's fingers moved with deliberate precision as she opened the manila folder, her movements so controlled and methodical that even the camera operators found themselves leaning forward. The courtroom, still reeling from Karen's shocking disrespect, watched in tense silence as America's most respected television judge prepared to respond. But instead of the explosive reaction everyone expected, Judge Judy did something that chilled Karen to the bone. She smiled. Not a warm smile, not a friendly smile, but the cold, calculated smile of a chess master who had just seen her opponent make a fatal mistake. Ms. Mitchell, Judge Judy began, her voice as calm as a still lake before a storm. That's a very interesting story you've told us today. Very detailed, very thorough. She emphasized the last word in a way that made Karen's confidence falter for just a moment. Judge Judy removed her reading glasses, cleaned them slowly and placed them back on her nose with the deliberate care of someone who was about to perform surgery. I'm curious about something, though. You mentioned that you documented everything. Every transaction, every withdrawal, every communication with Ms. Chen. Karen nodded eagerly, mistaking Judge Judy's measured tone for acceptance of her narrative. Absolutely, Your Honor, I believe in keeping accurate records. That's how I caught Sandra's theft in the first place. Her voice carried the same confident authority that had served her so well in previous deceptions. But something in Judge Judy's demeanor was making her feel unexpectedly uneasy. Judge Judy shuffled through the papers in her folder, not looking at Karen but speaking with the casual tone of someone making small talk. You know, Ms. Mitchell, I've been doing this for a very long time. Family court for 25 years, television for another 25. In all that time, I've learned that the most interesting cases aren't always about what people say. Sometimes they're about what people don't say. She paused, letting her words hang in the air like a noose, or what they think nobody else knows. The audience could sense the shift in energy. Judge Judy wasn't just questioning Karen's story. She was dismantling it piece by piece with surgical precision. Karen tried to maintain her composure, but her hands had begun to fidget with her purse strap, a nervous tell that Judge Judy noted immediately. Is there something specific you'd like to know, Your Honor? Karen asked, her voice slightly less steady than before. Oh, I think you know exactly what I'd like to know, Judge Judy replied, pulling a single sheet of paper from her folder and placing it face down on her bench. The gesture was simple, but it carried the weight of a bomb being armed. See, Ms. Mitchell, before every taping, my staff does what we call due diligence. We verify stories, we check facts, we make sure we understand exactly what we're dealing with. Her eyes locked onto Karen's with laser intensity. And sometimes we discover things that are illuminating. Karen's throat had gone dry. The confident woman who had walked into the courtroom was beginning to crack, replaced by someone who was starting to realize that her carefully constructed lies might not be as bulletproof as she had believed. "I'm not sure what you mean, Your Honor," she said, but her voice betrayed her growing panic. Judge Judy leaned back in her chair, studying Karen like a scientist examining a particularly interesting specimen. "Ms. Chen," she said, turning her attention to Sandra for the first time since the testimony began, "you've been very quiet during Ms. Mitchell's presentation. Is there anything you'd like to tell me about your former business partner's documentation habits?" Sandra, who had been sitting in stunned silence as Karen painted her as a thief, suddenly straightened in her chair. "Your Honor, I tried to tell people months ago, but nobody believed me. Karen is very convincing when she wants to be." Her voice was barely above a whisper, but in the silent courtroom, every word carried the weight of suppressed truth finally being allowed to surface. Judge Judy nodded slowly, her hand resting on the face-down paper. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm going to give you one more chance to tell me the truth about what happened to that $47,000. And I suggest you think very carefully about your answer, because what I have in this folder might change your mind about calling this court a joke." Judge Judy flipped the paper over with the casual grace of someone revealing a royal flush. "Ms. Mitchell, do you recognize this bank statement?" The document was crystal clear, blown up for everyone to see. Karen's personal account showing a deposit of exactly $47,000 on the same day she claimed Sandra had stolen the money. Karen's face went white. The confident woman who had just called the court a joke was now staring at irrefutable proof of her own lies. But Judge Judy wasn't finished. She pulled out a second document. "And this credit card statement showing your luxury vacation to Bali, paid for the day after that deposit?" Then a third. "And this receipt for the designer handbag you're carrying today, purchased with cash from that same stolen money?" The courtroom erupted in gasps and murmurs. Karen opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. In 3 devastating seconds, Judge Judy had turned Karen from victim to villain, from accuser to accused, from confident liar to exposed fraud. "Ms. Mitchell," Judge Judy said, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade, "you want to call my court a joke? The only joke here is thinking you could lie to me and get away with it. If you're loving Judge Judy's surgical takedown of this liar, smash that like button and let me know in the comments. What's the most satisfying moment of justice you've ever witnessed? Because this demolition is just getting started." Karen's world collapsed in real time, and the camera captured every second of her spectacular downfall. The woman who had walked into the courtroom like a queen was now scrambling like a cornered animal, her carefully constructed facade crumbling before a live television audience. "Your Honor, I can explain," she stammered, but her voice had lost all authority, all conviction. The confident manipulator was gone, replaced by a desperate woman watching her lies implode. "Explain what?" Judge Judy shot back, her voice carrying the full weight of her authority. "Explain how you stole $47,000 from your business partner, and then had the audacity to sue her for it? Explain how you fabricated evidence to frame an innocent woman, or explain how you thought you could lie to me in my own courtroom." Each question landed like a physical blow, and Karen visibly flinched with every word. The audience was transfixed, witnessing the complete destruction of someone who had seemed so confident just minutes before. Karen tried multiple times to speak, to salvage something from the wreckage of her lies, but Judge Judy cut through every attempt with surgical precision. "Ms. Mitchell, not only am I dismissing your ridiculous case, but I'm ordering you to pay Ms. Chen the $47,000 you stole, plus damages for the emotional distress you've caused this poor woman." Sandra Chen, who had entered the courtroom as the accused, was now vindicated completely. Tears of relief streamed down her face as she realized her nightmare was finally over. Karen, meanwhile, had gone from arrogant accuser to exposed criminal in less than 10 minutes, her reputation destroyed forever on national television. The woman who had called Judge Judy's court a joke had become the punchline herself. And the irony wasn't lost on anyone in that courtroom. Judge Judy leaned back in her chair, her eyes still fixed on the devastated woman before her, but her words were meant for everyone watching. "Let me tell you something, not just to Ms. Mitchell here, but to every person who thinks they can manipulate the system, lie their way to success, and destroy innocent people in the process." Her voice carried the weight of 5 decades in the legal system, every syllable earned through years of fighting for truth and justice. The thing about lies, especially elaborate ones like this, is that they require more lies to support them, and eventually the whole house of cards comes crashing down. Judge Judy gestured toward the evidence spread across her bench. Ms. Mitchell spent months creating fake documents, rehearsing her story and plotting to destroy her business partner's life. She thought intelligence meant the ability to deceive others. She was wrong. The courtroom was silent, everyone hanging on Judge Judy's words as she delivered what would become one of her most quoted moments. Real intelligence is having the courage to tell the truth even when it's difficult. Real strength is admitting your mistakes, not covering them up with more lies. And real character is lifting others up, not tearing them down for your own gain. Sandra Chen represented every honest person who had ever been victimized by someone more cunning, more ruthless, more willing to destroy lives for personal gain. Ms. Chen worked 16-hour days to build something beautiful, something honest. And this woman, Judge Judy pointed directly at Karen, tried to steal not just her money but her reputation, her future, and her children's security. Judge Judy's voice softened slightly, but the steel beneath remained unmistakable. I've seen thousands of cases in my career, and I can tell you this: the truth always wins in the end. Not because the system is perfect, but because people like Ms. Mitchell always make mistakes. They get overconfident. They push too hard. They forget that somewhere someone is paying attention. The lesson resonated far beyond that courtroom. In an age of social media deception, fake news, and carefully curated lies, Judge Judy's message was a reminder that authenticity still matters, that truth still has power, and that justice, while sometimes delayed, is never truly denied. Karen's spectacular downfall became a viral sensation, not because people enjoyed seeing someone fail, but because they needed to believe that honesty could still triumph over elaborate deception. The next time someone tries to convince you that this court, or any court seeking truth, is a joke, Judge Judy concluded, remember Ms. Mitchell, because the only joke here is thinking you can lie your way to success. Judge Judy's ability to expose liars and deliver justice never gets old. What other legendary Judge Judy moments do you want me to break down next? Drop your suggestions in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss these incredible moments of truth triumphing over deception.